Hey finance fam, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be answering the question, when should you sell your Bitcoin? Of course, we're going to be talking about Bitcoin because Bitcoin has made new all-time highs this week and everybody's talking about it now. Even if you're not invested in Bitcoin, what you're going to learn in today's video, you can actually use across any asset class. When you're deciding to sell stocks, when you're deciding to sell real estate, crypto, it works for everything. But specifically, let's chat Bitcoin. So let's jump over to Koifin and take a look at what Bitcoin has been doing. This is an absolutely gorgeous chart from a technical analysis perspective. And we've just seen this beautiful trend in Bitcoin where it's had very clear runs, retracements, more highs, pullbacks or aka retracements. And now we've finally retested the prior all-time high and we actually have broken through it just barely, but we have technically made a new all-time high. So this is looking pretty good. It's looking pretty strong and it's catching a lot of people off guard. A lot of people did not think that Bitcoin was going to reach new all-time highs anytime soon. But of course, it has a mind of its own and it's doing its own thing. Now, in our wealth building community, we do have a lot of people that are investing in Bitcoin or maybe even trading Bitcoin. So I know that there are people that have held this for a while, looking at gains in their portfolio, probably wondering what to do now. Now, first things first, I do want to say from a technical analysis perspective, meaning we're reading the charts and reading the strength and weakness in the charts, I will say that this chart is very strong and doesn't look like it's going to be slowing down anytime soon. But that doesn't mean that this couldn't potentially be a place where people might be interested in taking profit. So I wrote about this in the Daily Doe newsletter. If you're not subscribed, go to dailydoe.co to subscribe to our investing newsletter. And I came across a tweet. It's this person named Zach that tweeted, with Bitcoin hovering close to its all-time high of 69,000, I have a question for those that have been buying and holding for quite some time. What is your exit plan? Would you sell it if it goes to 90K, 100K per coin? And that's why, it sparked me to actually write this Daily Doe newsletter here, because I can't help but feel that asking a long-term Bitcoin investor what price they're going to exit their Bitcoin at, it's similar to asking somebody, hey, what price does the S&P 500 have to get to for you to sell all of your long-term investments in it? Nobody knows. Like, the reason that we invest in the S&P 500, or the reason we invest in anything long-term, retirement type time horizons, that we do that because we think that things are going to go higher in the future, but we don't know exactly because we can't predict decades out. Either way, with Bitcoin breaking all-time highs, it does beg the question, at what price should you be considering selling your Bitcoin? And that's what we're going to go through today and help you get on the right track and answering the right questions to get you to the right place. When people started investing long, long ago in tech companies like Apple and Microsoft, and there's many, many others, but when people started investing a long time ago, they didn't know exactly what these companies are going to turn into in the future. They didn't know exactly what kind of gains and that they were going to see in their stock prices. When we look back at Microsoft and Apple, we've just seen monster gains over the decades in these stocks. And anybody that bought and held them with a retirement time horizon has done very, very well. And, they probably at many, many points were told they should sell their shares, but they maybe didn't because they were long-term investors. And that is where, we have to start. When we're thinking about when to sell an asset, we have to first consider what kind of capital we're dealing with. There are three main types of capital. So this is essentially step one, is defining what kind of capital you're dealing with that you're trying to make selling decisions on. So short-term trading capital is going to be just that. Like, you're making these short buys and sells, trying to maybe just be in a position for days, maybe weeks, maybe months, but it's not something that you're holding for years or decades on end. It's something that you have a specific entry point and a specific target level, or at least you should have a target set on a trade before even entering it. But that's a whole nother story if you don't. But you should absolutely have targets set for short-term trades. You should know what price level you're going to take profit. So that is very different from, say, a short-term investment, which is our second type of capital that we deal with. A short-term investment, it's an investment. You probably have a multi-year time frame with this investment. So you probably also have a target price, that you're thinking. So, hey, if Bitcoin gets to 100K, I think I'm going to take some profit, take some off the table with this capital that I have dedicated to a short-term investment. So a long-term investment, that's a different kind of capital. That's our third type of capital. And this is your retirement time horizon type capital. This is money that you are literally setting it and forgetting it. You're putting it in, you're investing very long-term, possibly multi-decade investing, right? So you aren't going to really know where the price targets are that you'd be willing to sell for a long-term investment, because it's a long-term investment. Let's go back to our Apple and our Microsoft example, where these stocks really just have been absolute bangers. But people that were investing, in the early 2000s or even 2005, even 2010, they maybe didn't know that these stocks were going to do what they were going to do or what price levels they were going to get to, because it's really, really hard to predict that far out in the future. And honestly, the same goes for Bitcoin. It's like when you ask somebody that's a long-term investor or they're dealing with long-term investment capital, when you ask them, well, at what price of Bitcoin will you sell? A lot of them will say, like, I'm holding this. I don't know where it's going to go. It could go to 100K, it could go to 200K, it could go to nothing. It could die and go to zero, but this is a long-term investment for me, and I don't really know how far this thing can go. I'm going to kind of let it do its thing. So that's a very different mindset from managing long-term capital to short-term trading or short-term investing capital. Very, very different things. So that's the first thing that you need to be asking yourself. If you're considering selling your Bitcoin, you need to think about, well, what kind of capital are you looking at right now? And have you even divided up your capital and properly, said this much money is a trade, this much money is a short-term investment, this much money is a long-term investment? Have you even done that to begin with? If you haven't, now is a good time to kind of put a strategy together for your capital buckets. That's what we call them, capital buckets. The key is you do not want to be managing short-term trading capital the same way you manage long-term, or vice versa. You don't want to be managing long-term trading capital the same way you would manage short-term trading capital. That is a big no-no. And that's where you end up getting in trouble and having regrets when you sell things because you weren't thinking in that mindset. Now, I know a lot of people that have made life-changing money in Bitcoin. In the wealth building community, we've heard from countless people that literally have been invested in this thing since 2015, 2016, and they've just been holding it, and they're sitting on life-changing money. And you can say what you want about crypto and about Bitcoin, but it doesn't matter. These people are doing it, right? They've done it. And so the profits have been made whether you believe in Bitcoin or not. And it's really important when you find yourself in that situation where you're up a lot in profits that you manage the selling of this very well, because you just don't want to look back and think, oh, I should have done this differently later. You'll eat yourself up over that. So that leads me to kind of the second phase when you're trying to figure out if you should be selling your Bitcoin or really any asset. The second phase of the questions you should be asking yourself. So we already kind of went through what is the trading capital type that you're looking at? Is it short-term trading? Is it short-term investing, or is it long-term investing? Well, the next thing that you need to kind of think about when you're trying to make a selling decision is, can the money that has been made in the asset, or even a percentage of it, it doesn't have to be all of it that you're selling, even a percentage of it, will that help you change your life in a positive way and assist you in other goals that you have in your life? So, think about this for a second. If you can pay off your house, and having a mortgage really stresses you out because your income is very sporadic and not reliable, if you can pay for your child's college with the drop of a hat and not have to stress about it when before you did have to worry about that, if there are things that you can achieve that will change your life in a big way, then you should consider that. Put that, on a list, and basically value those things that you could do from 1 to 5, 1 being the least valuable to you and 5 being the most valuable to you. And then decide if it makes sense to maybe sell some profits in order for you to achieve a really big life-changing goal. I don't consider, going on a vacation a life-changing goal, but maybe for you it is. I think that there are things that are truly life-changing, like paying off a mortgage, paying for a child's college, helping a family member with healthcare bills that they're really drowning under, or something else that could be very meaningful and impactful in your life. That you'll have to make that decision for yourself if it's, that valuable to you or not. Like I said, write all of these things down that you could do with that money, or parts of that money. Because remember, you don't always have to sell everything. That's why we scale in and out of positions, and take some profit along the way to lock it in, but still have exposure to that asset. But write all of those things down and then value them from 1 to 5, 1 being the least valuable, 5 being the most valuable. And that'll help put things into perspective as to how far that money can take you. Lastly, when it comes to trying to make a selling decision, we need to think about how much risk do you want to have on the table. So when it comes to Bitcoin specifically, Bitcoin is the riskiest asset you can invest in, basically, to the general public at least. Yes, there's angel investments, which are very risky as well, but I'm talking about things that are available to most people. Bitcoin is a super volatile asset, big ups, big downs, and a lot of risk. If you find yourself that you've invested and maybe you didn't really know what you're doing and you ended up coming into all of this profit, but you don't really know what you're doing and you're not super comfortable with the volatility, this is a time to ask yourself, will you regret it if Bitcoin pulled back and those profits were gone? If you lost them, or if Bitcoin went in half, as far as its price, it went down 50%, in the next month. How would that make you feel? You have to play these scenarios out, because you might have too much risk on the table for your actual risk tolerance and risk capacity, meaning your ability to actually take on risk. You might have a family that you're caring for. You might have a disabled child that you're caring for. You might have parents, elderly parents that you're caring for, that you have to really be able to have some money to help them. And if you have too much risk on, you could lose everything, or you could lose a lot. So when thinking about should you sell your Bitcoin, think about how much risk you have on the table, and are you truly comfortable with that going forward if something were to happen? We've seen Bitcoin pull back 70, 80%. It lost 70, 80% easily of its value. It can happen again in the future. There's no guarantees with any of this. But we also see it go up a lot too. So you definitely have potential future profits that you could be making. So we have to balance the future profit potential, the future returns, with the risk that you have on the table as well. Is this a good time for you to sell some of your Bitcoin, pull risk off of the table, and diversify into other asset classes? Maybe. Are you getting closer and closer to retirement and thinking, well, hell, maybe I'll actually be able to retire comfortably now if I take some of this profit and risk off of the table and lock it in? That could be you. Here's the thing. You are never going to perfectly buy and perfectly sell an asset. You will always have a cost basis that you wish could be better. You will always sell and wish that you would have waited, if prices go higher. You're never going to be perfect when it comes to buying and selling. This is why we love to think through these things. We like to think through what kind of capital we're dealing with. We like to think through the risk that we have on the table and if it's time to maybe pull some risk off. Depending on where we're at in our life. We also want to think about how profits can help us reach specific goals in our lives. And we simply want to manage our portfolio and our profits to have the least amount of regrets possible while still giving us an opportunity to participate in the upside, if that's what you want to do. So I encourage everybody to go through this process, define the type of capital you're dealing with, trading versus investment capital, short-term versus long-term. Determine what goals you have set right now, what you're dealing with in terms of profit potential can change your life. And also, what kind of risk do you have on the table? And could that be adjusted, or are you okay with it? Go through all of the things that you can do with the profits that you have and value those things from 1 to 5. 1 being the least amount of value, 5 being the most amount of value. How will those things truly change your life for the better? And is it worth it? Is it worth selling your Bitcoin and potentially losing out on future profits in order to hit this huge milestone in your life elsewhere? And don't forget, scaling in and out is your friend. We like to take things little by little. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with taking some off the table and leaving some on the table in the right ratio that works for you. All right, finance fam, hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you like this video. Let me know what you're doing with your own portfolio and how you're making important selling decisions. If you're not already in our wealth building community, why? Why aren't you there? We have so many resources, premium education content. You have ETF guide that I created myself to help you with your passive investing portfolio. There are plenty of masterclasses in there for you to go through and really master every single part of being an active trader and investor. And you get access to our chat room so you can chat with us anytime. Your mentors are myself, a certified financial planner, Travis, who is a hedge fund investor professional, and Chris Dunn, who is an early Bitcoin investor and serial entrepreneur. All right, I'll see you guys next time.